Hello and good morning. Thanks for joining us for our webinar, Agile Practice, the Competitive Advantage for a Digital Age. It's really wonderful to have all of you here with us this morning. My name is Jake Brereton. I'm the Senior Brand Manager for JIRA here at Atlassian. So I'm on the marketing team and I look after JIRA's software products, mainly JIRA and JIRA Agile. And I have the privilege of hosting today's webinar on a recent HBR study and some of its findings related to Agile software development and the state of Agile in the year 2015. So again, thanks so much for joining us. It's really great to have you here. Over the next hour, we're going to be discussing a new report that was just released by the Harvard Business Review on the state of software, Agile software development. And the study which Atlassian has partnered with HBR to produce takes a very thorough look at Agile software development in a variety of different companies across multiple industries and takes a really deep dive into some interesting software development discoveries and trends in the market that they're seeing. So the main question I think the report was really interested in answering is Agile development a competitive advantage, and is it the competitive advantage that it's made out to be? So Agile has become very much a buzzword for anyone that's in the software development community, and I think a lot of proponents are always saying that going Agile is the answer to all of your software development problems, and if your team is Agile, then they'll be able to deliver more faster, and deliver things at higher quality. And of course, as the promise goes, there will be lots of chocolate and rainbows along the way. So in this report, I think the team at HBR, we really partnered with them, and we really wanted to get to the bottom, both quantitatively and qualitatively, of the actual advantages of being an Agile team and an Agile company and what that looks like in 2015. To enrich the discussion over the next hour, I'm really thrilled to be joined with three very esteemed Agile experts from innovative and awesome software companies that many of you attending here, I'm sure, more than familiar with at this point. So together we're going to be discussing the competitive advantages of Agile and sort of dissecting some of the findings from the HBR study a bit. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to the webinar Heather Fleming, who's the Senior Director of PMO at Gilt, Nate Van Dusen, who's the Engineering Program Management Director at Trulia, and Myra Benjamin, who's the Director of Engineering at Pandora. So guys, thank you so much for being with us this morning and agreeing to come and share your time and share your perspective. It's really wonderful to have you here.
Thanks for having us. Yes,
it's great to be here. Terrific.
Thank you.
Really the reason I asked Heather, Nate, and Myra to join us on the webinar this morning is because all three of them are sort of on the front lines, if you will, of driving Agile practices and transformations within their respective companies. And they've all been working to champion better ways of software development. So I'm thrilled they're here to share not only their unique perspectives, but also to sort of help us delve deeper into some of the conclusions that HBR found in its report. So again, welcome to the three of you. Before we go any further, I just wanted to quickly go through the agenda for the next hour. I think after we kind of finish kicking things off here, I'll give Heather and Nate and Myra the chance to each kind of spend some time talking about Agile and Agile development in their respective companies and sort of how that process has come along and some of the competitive advantages that they're seeing by using Agile development methods. And then following that, I'd love to just have a very open, honest roundtable discussion where I've pulled out some quotes and some of the findings in the HBR report that I'd love to get their perspective on. And the goal of that time is just to have a very open, honest discussion where we'll follow up on some of the topics and have a discussion from three people that are very much sort of in the thick of it to get their perspective and hopefully kind of uncover some of the nuances and challenges and opportunities involved in quote-unquote going Agile. So and then we'll follow up with a quick recap. So with that, I will say two more quick things. The first is the report that we're going to be talking about today in this webinar is available on the Agile Atlassian's Agile microsite called the Agile Coach, which we launched very recently. You can access that site at atlassian.com/agile. So it's a free download, and we'd encourage everyone to head to the Agile microsite at your leisure and download it. It's a really fascinating report. I think HBR has done some fantastic work, and it's to the benefit of anyone, both in the software development industry as well as any larger industry that's looking to kind of go Agile, if you will. So the Agile Coach is a fantastic resource for any teams looking to sort of make that transition, or teams that already have made that transition and are looking to always continuously improve. So please check out the Agile Coach at atlassian.com/agile, and that's where you can find this paper that we'll be discussing. And the second thing is just if you have questions throughout the webinar, please enter the questions in the kind of questions console that you see in front of you. Unfortunately, for this webinar, we will not be doing live Q&A because the second half of the webinar will be taken up as part of the roundtable discussion. But Heather and Nate and Myra have been gracious enough to agree to answer some of these questions afterwards. So we will publish a blog post after the webinar with answers to some of the common themes and questions we see. So if you have questions, please, by all means, share them and ask them in the console, and we will get to as many of them as possible in a follow-up blog post. And that is enough for me. With that, I'm thrilled to turn the floor over to Heather Fleming from Gilt, and she will be talking about Gilt and some of their Agile practices and the transformation they've seen at Gilt. So Heather, take it away.
Thanks, Jake. So I'm going to start off with just a little bit about myself and Gilt. So I'm Heather Fleming. I'm the Senior Director of the PMO at Gilt, and the PMO stands for Program Management Organization. And I have an interesting background. I actually started out more in front-end development and design. Back in the day, they called this like web production, where you kind of did everything soup to nuts. I am PMP certified, and I also have a certification in Myers-Briggs or MBTI, which I use a lot to help teams, communicate better and work better. I've been heading up PMOs since 2006. Prior to Gilt, I worked at XO Group, which is most well known for the Knot.com. And I consider myself an Agile evangelist, so I've done a lot of speaking and presenting on Agile philosophy, and in both how it helps software development, but also in how it helps personal development and how you can use it as a way of life. And what is Gilt.com? So Gilt is an e-commerce company, and we provide people with insider access to top designers, top brands, at up to 60% off in flash sales. So these sales typically go live at noon Eastern, and they last 72 hours, and we have limited merchandise. So it's kind of this big rush at noon every day for everybody to snap up the latest findings, the latest fashion at an excellent price. So I'm going to talk to you guys today a little bit about our advantage. So I really believe that Gilt has a competitive advantage using Agile in that it gives us greater alignment and greater clarity on what we're working on. And as many of you know, alignment and clarity are probably two of the most important ingredients to running a successful business. So the first thing I'm going to talk about a bit is how we come up with these we call them the Agile Agreements. So these are conversations that we have with our executive team, with our business stakeholders, with all of the different people that we're working with to execute on projects at Gilt. And there's kind of three key areas that we talk about. So the first area is this agreement about deadlines. One of the key things for us is to kind of change the way people think about what does done mean and when do things need to be finished. We found that many people just find a lot of comfort in this idea of a roadmap that has these set deadlines and set expectations of when things need to be done. But you're not necessarily delivering the best thing for our customer when all you're doing is focusing so much on a deadline and not so much on what you are delivering. So we want to make sure that everybody is kind of going into this process with us with a clear understanding of, we're not going to talk about deadlines. We're going to release things incrementally, and we're going to get things in front of you to react to so that we can decide together as one team when it's really ready to be released to all of our customers. The second thing is this agreement about engagement. And what we mean there is how do people align with this process and what are we expecting from them? So right now I'm actually doing this session with a bunch of our new business partners in what we expect from each one of them. And there are a lot of aspirational values on there, like we want them to be a part of our team. We want them to sit with us. We want them to attend sprint planning or our monthly meetings, or like to really feel as if they are with us and act as an advocate for us and a champion for us as we execute on getting things done in our new strategy. So it's really about, not throwing things over the wall or not coming up with a list of requirements and then expecting the tech team to execute against them. It's really about working together and that high level of engagement and that agreement to be engaged, to be present every day as we work towards these goals together is key to get alignment up front. And then lastly, in these 3 agreements, there's one about process. At Gilt, we don't necessarily follow one prescriptive model of Agile. We don't really follow Scrum as like the one way to work in Agile. So we are very much about, let's figure out how the team works. What are each individual's strengths and weaknesses? What are they bringing to that team? And let's make sure that we stay agile, but not necessarily follow a Scrum process for the sake of process. So if there are things that are not working, we throw them out. If there are things we want to try, we experiment. It's very much an environment of experimentation, iteration, finding what works, and throwing out the stuff that doesn't. That's why I like this little Yoda guy here, because, he's to the Agile side, many ways there are. It's very true. There's not one size fits all. So a little bit more about Gilt's specific Agile software development cycle. So at every company, there's a regular cycle of when you talk about your direction for the year or for the quarter and what are the things you want to focus on. And Gilt is no different. So we go through these cycles in which our C-level executive team and the board, they're focused on the higher level strategy for the company for a period of time. These are these big areas of focus. What we do next is we take this and we start thinking from the tech side and from the marketing side and from the merchandising side, okay, how do we break this down into specific initiatives that support the strategy? And when we're doing this, we're being really specific about what are we going to do, what are we not going to do, so that everybody is aligned and clear up front. And it kind of saves a lot of noise further downstream where teams are kind of trying to tease out what's really priority and what isn't. So getting this done up front is key. Then we go into a round in which we try to define KPIs or basically answering why. Why does this initiative exist? What are the things that we're trying to improve for the company? What are the needles that we're trying to move? And it's important that that ties all the way back to the strategy, is what we're doing in service of the overall company strategy. Then we start thinking about, okay, well, who are the people that we have and what teams can we form around these new initiatives, around these new KPIs? And in those teams, we do something a little bit different. So instead of thinking about roles, like I need a Scrum Master or I need a product owner, we think about the qualities of those roles. What are they really bringing to the table? And we think about, again, each individual's strengths and weaknesses. And we create these teams based on, do they have all of the ingredients they need to be successful in executing the strategy? And if they don't, then we figure out how do we supplement that or give them the training that they need or move people from one team to the next to satisfy the need. And then only after all of that is done do we start working on, okay, what's that first initial project that we're going to tackle, or that first sprint or that first milestone to support that initiative and that strategy. So there's a lot of things that we have learned over the years of going through these cycles and this model. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, there's more of these qualitative advantages to this model and this way of working, and how it provides a lot of alignment and clarity up front. One of the biggest things I think it does for our team is really gives everyone a sense of purpose. So we have this good sense of how, when I come to work every day, what am I doing that's in service of the company, that's supporting our strategy, that's pushing us forward? How does my work tie into that bigger story? So a lot more clarity and alignment around that. And then we also have a really good framework for prioritization, so we know that what we are working on is the thing that matters the most, and we don't easily get distracted by other things that come our way. We continue to get better at collaboration. Like I said before, we're partnering a lot more with people on the business side, so it's not just within tech. This philosophy and way of working is across our entire organization. And that collaboration is key valuing individuals and interactions. The things that are underlined here are straight out of like the Agile Manifesto. So valuing those people and how we interact with each other, valuing qualities instead of your job title. Those things are really key. And then we are able to respond to change. So as the market changes or our strategy changes or the needs of the company change, we can get through these cycles really quickly and execute really fast because we have that upfront clarity and that upfront alignment from the top down. So that's what I've got to say about this. I'm going to actually turn it back over to Jake now, and he's going to introduce Nate.
Awesome. That was terrific. Thank you so much, Heather, for sharing that. Sounds like alignment and clarity are the name of the game. You guys have figured out a great way to reach both. So thanks so much for sharing your perspective. Next, I want to introduce Nate Van Dusen from Trulia, and he's going to talk a little bit about their flavor of Agile and how they've made Agile work for them at Trulia. So Nate, the floor is all yours.
All right. Hey, Jake, thanks for that. Yeah, so I want to talk a little bit about our competitive advantage at Trulia. I'm Nate Van Dusen. I'm the Director of Program Management at Trulia. And I started my career as a sysadmin and database admin. I moved into database architecture and business intelligence consulting. And of course, as a consultant, I was running large projects and programs, which is really what started to lead me towards agility and get to think about how I could run projects more effectively and with achieve more success. So I actually helped lead my first Agile transformation in 2009 and have been focusing on Agile since then. And I've been leading an Agile scaling initiative that we've created at Trulia for the last 2 years. I also presented philosophies around scaling Agile in various interviews, meetups, and conferences, including I actually spoke at the Atlassian Summit last year. And who is Trulia? Well, we are now recently a Zillow Group company. We were just acquired a couple months ago. But Trulia is a technology company that's revolutionizing real estate search and empowering consumers like you and I to find our perfect home. So we make websites, mobile websites, applications for tablets, phones, all to help you search for a home and then hopefully connect you with an agent, maybe get a mortgage, all the things that go into the chaotic world of acquiring a home, as well as even rental properties. So that's a little bit about me. But what I want to talk about as far as Agile at Trulia is just that Agile is for everyone. Now, when I talk about that, that's really been our initiative is to spread Agile throughout the entire organization, not just through the engineering department, which you heard about a little bit before at Gilt, and I think is for people who have been working on Agile at scale as a problem. I think this is a common theme that I hear from a lot of peers of mine these days at a lot of different companies is how can we, instead of just having things come top down, how can we bubble things up from the engineering groups as far as our Agile philosophies and have them permeate throughout the entire organization. And basically, you don't have to wait until you're a large company and have already run into the brick wall, into these scaling challenges. We've just, decided that we would have been much better off if we would have started these initiatives much earlier. So a company of any size can employ Agile principles, right? So that will ensure success as the company and the projects and the teams grow instead of waiting until you've grown and you have all of these challenges. And also, you can optimize your entire organization, again, from the top down. It doesn't have to be, engineering, finance, and product speaking different languages. You can get everyone aligned from the top level, get them on the same page, and then they can instill and encourage these philosophies and principles throughout their business units, which will have everyone speaking same language, same nomenclature, which is how we get all these things to work. So at Trulia, one of the things, and a little bit like you heard at Gilt, just as far as talking about kind of the hierarchy of how things work. So what we've done is we've, expanded a little bit on, and again, common theme for a lot of companies going through scaling challenges in Agile. So we've expanded upon the kind of traditional Agile hierarchy of tasks or subtasks stories or bugs, and then epics. So we have endeavored to track everything from our top-level business goals. And at Trulia, we actually use OKRs, which are objective and key results. That's our top-level business goal. And then that's kind of a year-long initiative. And below that, we have a theme, which can be a multi-quarter initiative. Underneath that, we have epics, which we don't have any epic run longer than a quarter at Trulia. And then under that, of course, we have stories and bugs and tasks and subtasks. So really what we're doing is we're trying, again, getting everyone speaking the same language, knowing that this is how we look at the business. Then we're able to, really talk about where we are investing time, resources, money, and what our ROI is, and how we're doing all the way from our lofty business goals all the way down through to subtasks. So we've expanded a little bit on the traditional Agile hierarchy to allow us to track everything through the entire organization. And what that looks like a little bit, so after you get past that top-level business goal, this is just how we break down our work. So the theme provides the opportunity, the business value, and the high-level sizing. And then a theme can have multiple epics underneath it, which breaks into independent capabilities and are prioritized based upon the business value. And then also an epic can have multiple stories, which breaks down into smaller features and functions that can be delivered within a single sprint. So that's a big key there also, is we make sure that no story goes longer than a sprint. Very, kind of standard Agile, but we've discovered that while we were working on higher level initiatives, we also needed to go hard at fundamentals to ensure success. And then obviously subtasks, you can have a ton of them underneath the story, as long as, again, it's not going to take longer than a sprint to complete that work. So that's the way we break down our work at Trulia, all the way from a top-level business goal through to subtasks. So, and then how do we manage all of that work and those requirements in the hierarchy of work? Well, we use tools, and really it's important to let the tools help you. So at Trulia, we actually do use the Atlassian suite of tools with integration between them to manage all of our product work from ideation and communication through to the release of the products and work. So we use JIRA, JIRA Agile, and since September, we've been using JIRA Portfolio, which has been extremely helpful at managing, again, these higher level, longer running themes and epics and tracking them to our OKRs and having a single point of truth, not just for a backlog of development activities, but really at a portfolio level, a single point of truth for the bigger level initiatives, and have really helped empower us to make decisions at a quarterly level. So we have a quarterly planning session that we call Slingshots. It's like a giant retrospective, which is the pull back on the slingshot, and a giant look forward to what we want to accomplish the next quarter. It's almost like a super high-level sprint planning session. Well, we use JIRA Portfolio that manages a stack-ranked backlog of our epics for what we want to do longer term. Now, of course, things change all the time, and we work in a very agile manner, but that allows us to at least keep those product ideas in a single place that everyone can look at and ideate on. And then once they're become actionable epics or stories that have acceptance criteria and are well-defined, then they very seamlessly get created onto the JIRA sprint backlogs for our teams to execute upon. And we use Confluence as our internal wiki. We use Stash to manage our code repositories. And we use HipChat to communicate about all these things. And again, we have integration between all of them, which has been really awesome and been kind of a game changer for us, going from spreadsheets and Excel and all of those things. So I just wanted to finish by, again, really what this is all about for us is we've involved everyone from finance, business executives, product teams. So scaling Agile successfully takes everyone, right? So Agile needs to be a mindset valued and embraced by all aspects of the business. And that's something that really need to take to heart, I feel, in order to scale Agile successfully. And we've been doing a pretty good job at Trulia, and hopefully that just keeps continuing. So thanks for your time. And with that, I just want to pass it back to Jake.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Nate. I know Trulia's been doing some awesome work. I know you guys are pretty distributed teams. So that's an awesome story. I really appreciate your insight into that and how you guys are making that work. Last but certainly not least, I'm going to turn it over to Myra Benjamin, who works at Pandora and is doing some awesome work on the Agile front there. And Myra, I will turn it over to you to talk about Agile development at Pandora.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Myra Benjamin, and I want to discuss what Pandora's competitive advantage is for using Agile. Also want to talk a little bit about some of the things we've seen using Agile here at Pandora. First of all, a little bit about myself. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I've worked at various companies, large, medium, small, startups. I started out as a software engineer in the back end. I still do think of myself as a back-end engineer. And I have a knowledge of a lot of software programming languages, C++, C, Java. First of all, a little bit about myself. I've been in this industry for over 20 years. I've worked at various companies, large, medium, small, startups. I started out as a software engineer in the back end. I still do think of myself as a back-end engineer. And I have a knowledge of a lot of software programming languages, C++, C, Java, you name it, I probably know it. I like being on the cutting edge of technology. I did author a book on C++, which came out at the time when it was much more popular. And I am a certified Scrum Master. I got that certification along the way coming to Pandora. About Pandora, if you guys don't know us, we are basically an internet radio broadcasting on the web, and we unleash the infinite power of music by being the effortless source of personalized music enjoyment via the web and mobile devices. We're trying to be as ubiquitous as we can on all your devices, and we would love for you to enjoy the music that we serve. So, Pandora, what is our advantage? And basically, we're very agile about our adoption of Agile. There are all kinds of teams here at Pandora. We have data scientists, we have product managers that are on the teams, we have front-end, back-end engineers, mobile engineers, and so forth. And what we've found is that we need to be very agile about how we adopt it across the organization. We're growing very fast, and so I want to talk a little bit about what's going on here with respect to that. There is really no one size that fits all for our teams, as I've mentioned. Some of our teams are a little bit more agile than others. And what I found is the product teams that focus on our listeners are the most agile, along with those engineering teams that have those product managers. So it's that combination of product and technology that will make us more agile than some other teams. But our least agile teams that we've noticed have been the blended teams that have data scientists and engineers. And my theory there is that data scientists are mostly coming from academic backgrounds at this point, and Agile is a really new concept for them. So they're struggling a little bit with that, but I think that we'll get there. And some of the new teams that are just forming are not as agile as some of the other teams, of course. Some of our favorite Agile paradigms, and some that work and don't work for us, is that we do believe very strongly in co-locating our teams. We have all the members of a product team located next to each other in one area of the floor. And that has worked really well for everybody in terms of communication and getting the product out. We use Agile software by Atlassian, which is JIRA, and we do a lot of prioritization. As you can imagine, there are many small teams, and we need to figure out what's important across the organization. And so we do carry on with prioritization activities. We are very strong believers in breaking down tasks into smaller chunks. And there are certain teams that are able to iterate with our end users, being internal teams. We have a couple of teams that are tools teams, and they do iterate with the people that will use their software. And that's one of the purest forms of Agile as far as I'm concerned, is when you're actually sitting down with the end user of your product. What's not working for us and what we don't use, surprisingly, are burn down charts and velocity charts. And that's because I think we're all aligned with the concept of breaking down these tasks into smaller chunks. And I found that a lot of engineers don't necessarily like being measured constantly, so we've kind of walked away from the charts for the moment. That's not to say that we won't do that in the future, but it's just not working as well for some of the teams here. Definitely any of the unclear task descriptions don't work, because if you're not clear about what you're implementing, of course, you're not going to be able to implement it. So we're very clear about trying to get that clarity from our product managers and from anyone that wants a task done. And large engineering teams, anything above 10 engineers, we found isn't as agile as we would like. And we're very clear on trying to make these teams small as possible so that they can be as agile as possible. So what's great about what we're doing and what do we need to be better at? Because, of course, we like to improve. The things that we're great at right now is that we are very good at delivering on time. People set forth schedules and then we're able to break down the task, or actually we can be upfront and say that's not going to be happening in the time frame that you would like. We are very good about breaking down complexity. A lot of times people will approach the engineering team and have big ideas in mind, and we are able to break those down in order to execute. And we communicate really well across the teams. Agile is one of the things that's helping us with that. The things that we need to work on, though, are, of course, better estimation, because, of course, that'll help us understand if we can really deliver the project on time. We want to be more predictable, and that's a function of product managers wanting to understand whether we can, in fact, be able to deliver on longer running projects. And we are not very good at managing interruptions to our schedules at the moment because it just does throw a wrench in things. But because we have these interruptions, we've been able to address that in a better manner. So we really like Agile, and I think that you should too, but you should also keep in mind that you can be Agile about the way you're implementing Agile, as in just consider different flavors of Agile and what works with each of the teams, and then just change it as time goes on, or maybe the team wants to turn to something else. Just be really fluid and flexible with that, and you'll be surprised at all the results that you get. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Myra, for sharing your perspective on all that. And it's awesome that Pandora is good at time to market and delivering things quickly, because I know lots of people, including myself, very much enjoy the software that you guys are building. It's really terrific. So as I said at the beginning, I'd really like to spend the next 20, 25 minutes doing is just I pulled out some quotes and statistics from the study, the HBR study, and I'd love to just kind of get your collective perspectives on some of these findings and see if you agree, disagree, if you have something to add. The report talks a lot about Agile, the transformation to Agile, the tooling involved in Agile, kind of where it's come as well as where it's going. And again, kind of being on the front lines and being out there in your respective companies, kind of championing these causes, it'd be fantastic to get your perspective on all these things. So I really just encourage you guys to each share your perspective and challenge each other, and hopefully we can have a really robust conversation. The first thing I wanted to ask your perspective on was a quote from the HBR article that comes from Tom Pater, who's an associate vice president at Nationwide Insurance. He says in the report that since sort of implementing Agile at Nationwide, software defects across the enterprise have dropped by 50% each year since 2009. While application development staff productivity has increased by 60% overall. So if you look at those numbers, that's especially for a larger organization that's doing some major software work, those numbers are incredible. And you look at that and you read that and you say, okay, anyone reading that who has kind of not gone Agile would immediately read that and go, oh my gosh, this is a no-brainer. So yeah, at the same time, a lot of what we hear from customers day in, day out is that it's really a struggle to get that sort of adoption. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that quote. A, if that's something that you guys are seeing kind of similar decreases in defects and increase in productivity, and also if it's seemingly that easy, why aren't more companies sort of hopping on the Agile bandwagon and seeing those kind of results? And that is open to anyone to comment on.
You know what? This is Heather Fleming. I'm going to say who I am every time I speak, because I know you can't see me. But I actually would like to ask the other panelists too. Like, are you able to track that kind of metric in your current implementation of Agile? I know for us it would be very hard to get to those kinds of numbers in that I can't say it, and that level of detail, because for us it's just been more of that feeling, right? So when you're developing something iteratively and you're putting things out into production in these smaller chunks to get eyes on it earlier, it's kind of like, yeah, of course you're going to have less defects because you're catching stuff much earlier in the chain. But as far as like being able to track that with that much data to that level of detail, like we haven't been able to do that, nor I don't think would we want to invest in tracking that. So maybe I'm not the best person to answer, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it.
I'd have to say from Pandora's point of view that I agree with Heather. We're not tracking to that granularity, but I can say that one of our first products, the playlist algorithm that we've had since the beginning, has only improved via all of these all of the things that we've been doing, and it's the most reliable piece of code right now. It's so reliable that it rarely has any bugs when we put it out to production. I can't even recall the last time that's happened. So I would say maybe from a qualitative point of view, we can say, yeah, it has improved things, but we haven't measured it. So I wouldn't, want to be quoted as, yes, definitely there's that kind of decrease or increase in quality.
Yeah, this is Nate Van Dusen from Trulia. Yeah, for us, the way that we do it currently and have for quite some time is we don't really, some teams look at number of defects or, and or bugs, however you want to call them, but really what we've learned as a way to track quality is our hot fixes. So that's really any time that we have something out there in the wild that we actually have to, go in production and change outside of our normal release patterns. So that is a metric that we look at and rely upon heavily. And I'd say that at the beginning of 2014, those numbers were starting to get to a place that we did not like. So 2014 actually became one of our big, themes was called building quality in. And really what that really was about in a lot of ways was just going back hard at Agile fundamentals, making sure we weren't skipping a backlog grooming session and thinking we could just do it all in a sprint planning session, right? So making sure we had that opportunity for the engineering leads to ask questions of the product owner. Making sure that we were having at any sort of release meeting and retrospectives, making sure we were doing demos, making sure things were working right when things were cut off before they went live. So we were able to, we had been tracking that metric for quite some time, and we started to see it go in a place we were not happy with, and we invested really heavily in Agile fundamentals and saw it get back to a place that we're really proud of.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that's really, really great. What would you guys say, again, something else that was found in the report is that moving to a more agile way of doing software development increases employee satisfaction, and they give a range of 20 to 40%, which it sounds like you guys you probably would want to go on record saying that you are measuring that in any sort of really significant way. Again, I think I agree with Heather. That's kind of maybe a hard thing to really quantify, but. Can you talk a little bit about, has that been the experience across your teams? Do you think that moving to a more agile way of developing has overall improved the the employee satisfaction across your software development teams, or any teams using Agile for that matter?
I would say for us at Gilt, that number's low. I would say it's actually higher than 40%. For us in tech, that satisfaction really comes from having a much clearer set of expectations. Like, just going back to those agreements up front, this is how we're going to work, and this is the benefit of it, and getting everyone on the same page, even around that concept of deadlines, it just made everybody take a sigh of relief that, we can tell the truth to each other. I don't have to pad estimates. I don't have to, do all this upfront work to convince you why this is important. It's kind of like these things are about people and people working together, and that alone, increased, why we enjoy working here so much more than more of a traditional waterfall style model, or the world in which kind of businesses versus tech, and they're working on opposites to each other instead of together. So I know for us, it has been a game changer, and one of the reasons why people work here.
Yeah, and at Trulia, I'd say it's that number also is probably low. It's probably one of the most, the biggest reasons why people enjoy working at Trulia is related to kind of how we work, which has to do with agility. And for us, though, it's we go really hard at some of the kind of some of the foundational pieces that I referred to in my slide deck, and just kind of how we define work so that everyone knows that. But really, the way that we work enables, as long as people are working within that just kind of loose foundational or even frame, then people have the ability to kind of do things differently. Certain teams even estimate a little bit differently, and teams may break down their work slightly differently and look at things a little differently, and really just the ability to, and just like at Gilt was just mentioned, I'd say the honesty is important. So empowerment, especially even around estimating your own work, right? That's huge. And yeah, and then the ability to do it honestly and say, hey, you know what, this is massive. And then, the product owner needs to go back and break down the work a little more. All that does is set the table for success much earlier, creates a mindset about creating kind of more of an MVP type model for product development and iteration, and which we find to be extremely beneficial for ourselves and our customers.
I would say that at Pandora, it's pretty much a way of life for us, and we don't have very many engineers that don't want to do this, and I can imagine that there would be a lot of dissatisfaction with their careers here if they weren't able to participate in the Agile process, no matter what version or what kind of treatment we have of it. And it makes, even the product managers, it makes them really happy to see that the engineers can break down the tasks and deliver what their vision is. And I can't even imagine us going to a waterfall model at all. In fact, part of our recruiting, I've encountered engineers that would specifically say, I hope you guys do Agile here, because there's that kind of satisfaction with that methodology in general out there, even beyond Pandora. So I would say that it's revitalized a lot of people's careers in the process here, and it's not something that I can quantify, or put a number to, but I can definitely say that if we weren't doing it, people would not be very happy about that.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm sure a lot of people would love to hear that and be a part of something that could potentially revitalize their career like that. And that's something that's, I think, definitely a trend we've seen as well, just in terms of talking to our own customers. So it's great to hear that echoed here. One thing I wanted to ask you guys about, Nate, you touched on this a little bit, was just, and this is dealt with in the HBR study, is they say one of the most important things is that there are standardized definitions kind of across the board. However, if you really look at Agile and implementing Agile in such a way that teams can really work in the most efficient way possible for them, there's always I would imagine there's always sort of that tension between how much do you standardize, and how much do you leave to each team to come up with its own standards in terms of defining anything from what a story point is to what success is at the end of the day. So I'd really love to get your guys' thoughts on how much you do sort of standardize across the team and across the company.
Yeah, so I think that it's a delicate balance, and I think that I think the answer is different depending on where you are in terms of just your product maturity, your organizational maturity, and sheer number of team members and even company size. I think that you have more flexibility when you're smaller, but kind of what I was talking about, in my slides is you should at least start thinking about these things at some level and having, the business try to be speaking in a common way and feeding requirements in a way that fits in with agile execution, so that you can still enable teams to have some flexibility in how they work, like you said, and how you story point. But really, a lot of the way to do that and to ensure the right level of standardization, I think, is through tools. Now, I know that's, that you should be careful about saying tools are the answer, but really, the ideas and the principles and the philosophies are the answer, but the tools are how you actually standardize and get people, working on a common way, on a common platform. And so I think it's just, frankly, there hasn't been many good or any good kind of portfolio level tools for Agile, and that's even kind of a new mindset in the last 3 or 4 years. And we just happen to be using JIRA Portfolio to do that, but really what we've found is that enables us to do planning at a higher level. And when I mean planning, I mean both stack ranking of longer running initiatives and even resource capacity planning in a way that still fits exactly in and is even part of the same tool in JIRA that we execute on. So abstracting a layer of product ideation and planning in a tool that feeds the backlog organically has been big for us, because then that allows teams a little bit more freedom, because we don't have to be super paranoid about managing everything the exact same way within like a JIRA Agile board, because we're doing it at a layer abstracted in JIRA Portfolio.
Any thoughts on that from your end, Heather or Myra?
I'm just kind of, I want to talk to Nate afterwards about what he's doing with Portfolio, actually, because we are not able to get to that point yet, where we are using JIRA more and more across the board, but we're at that stage where every team is experimenting in their own way. And like when you talk about standards, or even whether teams are using story points, that is up to each individual team. And I don't know yet if we'll get to a point where we are trying to do more things the same way, or whether we find that the value in working in different ways is actually greater for us. But like today, we have a team using issue count, and I actually personally love using issue count as a way to burn down a sprint, because a team working in a 2-week sprint, and that team's been together for a while, they get a good feel for how much work can they actually commit to over that time period, and they do it based on issue count. And then at the end of the sprint, we look at and see how many of those issues actually got closed out, and that ends up being their velocity. It's a good signal back to, okay, are we overcommitting every sprint, without having to go through detailed estimation or story points or anything like that. So, and that's just one team and how they work, whereas another team actually likes to estimate, but they'll do it in duration instead. So we're at that point where we're not standardizing much, but we use JIRA as a way to pull information together. So I use a lot of dashboards to be able to show for every team what is basically in their portfolios right now, but we haven't abstracted that out to JIRA Portfolio.
I'd have to agree with Heather in the fact that a lot of our teams here at Pandora are not standardized. They use the things in the Agile framework that are suited for that team. Now, there is a desire for us to standardize across the way for all the teams, because we're growing so quickly that it probably makes sense to get to a point where we're all thinking the same way. But so far, we found that it's best to just have the team decide how they want to implement Agile practices in their environments, and it's been beneficial across the board for us. So while I think that we'll probably get there at some point, maybe to standardize the larger we become, at this point we're not that way. And we do have a strong desire to get there. But like Heather said, sometimes it's the team, that makes those decisions, and it's the team that delivers, and we count on the team to govern themselves accordingly.
Like right now it's not to our advantage to implement standards. It's to our advantage to allow each team to find the best way they work.
And I agree with that completely.
And there you have it, multiple flavors of Agile being implemented simultaneously, all I would say very successfully. That's really great to hear, guys. Another question for you. In the report, in the HBR report, they say that the worldwide market for Agile application lifecycle management tools is between 2014 and 2017. It's going to move from 405 million to 1.1 billion. So it's nearly tripling in a matter of 3 years. So obviously a ton of growth there. As you guys have been touching on kind of tooling back and forth in all of your answers, what is it? What would you see as the major, if there is a major inhibitor right now in terms of tooling? What does tooling not do? Where is there still room for innovation in terms of Agile tooling that you think might drive or fuel a lot of that growth?
I think for us, like even though the UI is, and I'm talking about JIRA and JIRA Agile, the UI is easy for us to understand in technology. And I can create a lot of different dashboards. I still am finding it a challenge to get people outside of technology to want to actually go into JIRA and use it the same way I do, or even to look up information the same way I do, where I still have to abstract it out into a higher level view or a presentation or even an Excel sheet, which makes me cringe a little bit. So I think there is an opportunity to maybe further understand the business customer as opposed to a software engineering team and what their needs are and what they are looking for and what is their fear and how can we help them overcome that fear so that we can all work more collaboratively together.
Any thoughts, Nate or Myra?
Yeah, I mean, I think that as far as, for all that I'm touting the new arrival of portfolio level tooling, I think that is a huge green field. I think it can continue to just get better and better and better. I think that the reporting in general, I think we've all talked about how do you track that number or KPI, and I think that just reporting in general needs to get a lot better and a lot easier, and to really show how you're moving the needle, and again, kind of really reporting on that, tracing from a top-level business goal down to individual, tasks. I mean, there's lots of different sorts of plugins and different tools, but I still think it's a huge area for innovation and improvement. And I think just the continued growth of communication and collaboration, even around like HipChat, or if you're talking about any of the other tools that are out there, I think that the further development of those tools and then the integration with whatever the rest of your stack that you're managing your Agile process with, I can dream about where I want it all to go, and hopefully it just all kind of continues to develop and mature, which I'm sure it will over the next 3 to 5 years.
I think that for me, and I'm now speaking outside of Pandora from previous experiences that I've had at other companies, one of the things that I thought the tools should move towards is just a higher level abstraction of everything across an organization. And it's been difficult for me to just kind of get that, and Nate mentioned JIRA portfolio, which I wasn't aware of, and hopefully that'll solve it. But I think for the business people, the business side of the house, this tool is not really useful for them. They're looking for summary views and abstracted information that is a little difficult to get to roll up to a certain level, and I think that would make it easier for them to adopt the tool as opposed to getting yet other tools that will abstract everything that we do. So just kind of thinking of the tools as a symphony. Every part in the symphony has its section, and they should all work together. I just find that sometimes some of these tools just don't work very well together at all.
That's fantastic. We are closing in on an hour here. I've got, if we can squeeze in 2 more questions for you guys while we've got you. This is fantastic. I wish we could do this for another half an hour or so. One of this is kind of a great lead-in from the answer to your last question, Myra. But one of the findings in the study that the HBR presents is that in terms of technical best practices, they say it's essential from all the different companies they talked with and told that the tighter the integration between the tools, the more successful the team. So I'm curious, and you guys have kind of been mentioning this a little bit in and out over the course of the conversation, but sort of how do you guys look at this strategy between integrating tool sets and teams, and keeping, obviously, as you have a time of teams working, keeping them connected by using the same tool set? Because we do hear a lot that it's fantastic to have a consolidated tool set, but one of the challenges you have as you have autonomous teams working is that they all choose their own tools and use the tools that are best for them. So how do you guys in your organization sort of manage that process?
At Gilt, it just kind of goes along with the same theme where we do allow the teams to choose their own tools, and that goes not just for how we're tracking our work, but also for how they do code review. So, it's kind of up to the team to figure out how do they want to deploy to production, how are they going to do code reviews and code merges, and it's kind of an interesting situation where you do have multiple solutions, and one of the things that comes out of it, though, is through the being able to experiment with multiple solutions, there ultimately is a winner at the end of that, where we're sharing and collaborating a lot on what tools work really well and what isn't working, and how does this one tool solve a big problem for us. And at the end of it, we come out with something that is truly going to work for Gilt across the board. But we're in that stage where we're still, able to experiment, which is great. And I think it's a good benefit.
Awesome. I guess as we close in on the hour here, I've got one more question for all 3 of you. This is a little bit more of a fun question than related to HBR. But was there one moment, sort of, especially this might have been earlier on in your careers, where either one moment or maybe one software deploy or one feature that was built where you said it was the aha moment, and you thought, wow, this would have never been possible had we not been working in a more agile way, or perhaps it was when something broke and was fixed, and you said, and that was sort of your personal transformation moment when you said, this is the future, this is the way I want my teams to run from this point forward, and you kind of became a champion. Do you guys have that? Is there a moment you can recall when that was sort of the case, and it was the turning point for you personally?
I can answer that. It's Heather. I feel like I'm answering everything. Sorry. I'm a project manager at heart, right? So, of course, one of the first things I did in my project management career is get my PMP certification from the Project Management Institute. And, it's very, it provides you with this big tool set in which it kind of goes through more of this standard waterfall style traditional model of project management. And, you get your certification and you think, all right, I've got my tool set, I'm ready to go. And then right at that point, things start to change where, Agile is just coming onto the scene, and the way in which we're talking about work is changing. And I'm like, oh my God, I just got this certification, and I felt like the world went upside down. And I kind of had to do a little soul searching for what do I think works best. And luckily, I've been with awesome software companies throughout my entire career that do encourage experimentation with new methodologies. And I love changing up things. I love, mixing it up. So I kind of went through this little period of experimenting with both traditional processes and Agile at the same time. And through that, we realized if we had followed a more traditional model, the project would have taken, 5 times as long and cost 10 times as much, and then only to find out that we produced something that wasn't of as much value to our customer in the end, as opposed to following an Agile model. We ran into problems a lot earlier, were able to solve for them, and in some cases we canceled projects so that we were able to just say, you know what, this is not going to work for us, and we found that out much earlier, as opposed to waiting until we got to the end of delivery to go over, is this what you expected? So having my foot in both worlds during that time where Agile was just coming on the scene was kind of an amazing moment, and I just remember that turning point, which is really exciting.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Any thoughts? Any fond memories? You're in Nate or Myra?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's been a couple. I don't think there's been kind of a defining aha moment. I think there's just been several moments where it's like, yeah, this is why, this is the way to be, and this is why this is good, just for constant kind of reminders. I mean, for me, if you hear about the premise of waterfall versus the premise of Agile, just hearing about it, I would go, aha. but in actually executing, the two for years and years and years, the most recent probably would be, just since it's very recent, was at Trulia about 1.5 years ago. We purchased a company, and they were located in a different city and a waterfall company, and going there and helping them kind of transform so that we were able to do this huge project cross-functionally, cross-team, across the companies. But, having them, well, of course, there's apprehension and people being scared about change, but really overall being like, oh my God, thank you for helping us be set free from operating in this manner and executing, and just, really there was a big period of disbelief, yeah, we know we've, dabbled in Agile, but we don't really believe we're going to be allowed to execute like this. That, it sounds too good to be true. And helping break them free. That was really satisfying, just to be like, nope, this is really the way we actually do it. We're not just, pretending. So that's been fun.
And for me, the aha moment came when, I've always been on the execution end of things, where I have to provide estimates and say, oh yeah, we, deliver it, or if I don't deliver it, then you have to be, explaining what happened and so on and so forth. And my aha moment came before Agile really took root. I was curious about it, and I decided to experiment with it with a team that I had. This was before I joined Pandora, and I just didn't want to do the waterfall thing with them, because I saw that the requirements would change by the time we got the project done, and that was really frustrating. And as an engineering manager, I always felt that I wasn't delivering what was needed, so it just didn't make me feel great, and the team wasn't jazzed about it. So I said, let's try this, and I did it in kind of a undercover, covert, secret manner, and just picked something, and we did it. And the CTO came by one day and said, hey, about that project, when do you think you can deliver it? And I said, oh, we just finished it up last week.
Oh,
and that
fantastic.
was great. And it was totally, I know this word gets used a lot, but it was epic for me, and it was great for the team to deliver something that a CTO thought, well, it'll take months and months and so on and so forth, and they never deliver on time. And we delivered ahead of time, and that's when I revealed to them that I was using this, and I was able to take the company, or at least not the company, but the technology organization down the road towards Agile. So for me, that was a defining moment, and ever since then I've been making sure that I take that with me everywhere I go.
Boy, that's fantastic. Thank you all for sharing those, Myra. That's a fantastic way to wrap this up. First of all, we're out of time here. I just want to say thank you, a very sincere thank you to all three of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk to us today and share your experiences. I only hope that all the webinar attendees have gotten as much of this out of this as we have. So thank you to all of you. I can't tell you how much we appreciate it. One more time, I just want to remind everyone that everything we discussed here is from the new HBR report called Agile Practice, the Competitive Advantage for Digital Age, which is out right now and can be downloaded for free from the Agile Coach, which you can get to by going to atlassian.com/agile. So we would encourage everyone to go there and download it and read the report and let us know what you think. If you have any remaining questions for Nate, Heather, or Myra, please leave them in the question console here in the webinar, and we will try to follow up with as many of them as we can afterwards in a blog post. And I think that about does it. So once again, Nate, Myra, Heather, thank you so much for your time, and hope to see you again soon. And I think that does it for this webinar. So hope to see you all again in the very near future.